So the Roccat Kone Pure Ultra is a mouse that hasn't seen much attention here on YouTube or on Reddit on r/mouse review. And while I think it's a little underrated, it can be hard to recommend when other, less expensive mice with more features exist in the market. Today, I'm going to try and give you an idea if this mouse is right for you. Let's get started. What's up guys, I'm Toki, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Roccat Kone Pure Ultra. So not that many people have reviewed the Kone Pure Ultra, and I think it's a shame, because I think it has a really unique set of attributes that'll interest a lot of gamers and a lot of mouse enthusiasts. It comes in at $65 US, 70 euros, or 85 Canadian dollars, in black, white, or if you order from Amazon Japan, this awesome pink colorway at around 7,500 yen. Okay, so first let's talk about the reason why you would get this mouse in the first place. It has an incredibly unique shape. You can see just by looking at the bottom of it here, just how different it is from every other mouse out there on the market. It's a smaller ergo mouse, but it's not just an EC2A clone or a Razer Death Adder mini clone. It's its own really just like different, unique shape. It measures approximately 11 centimeters lengthwise, 3.8 centimeters tall, and 5.7 centimeters at the grip. And it's definitely on the smaller side. My hand measures 18 centimeters lengthwise by 10 centimeters width, and I use a fingertip claw grip on it, if that's any metric for any of you guys out there. For comparison, the G Pro Wireless is 12.5 centimeters lengthwise, 4 centimeters tall, and 5.9 centimeters at the grip. The Death Adder Mini is 11.5 centimeters lengthwise, 3.8 centimeters tall, and 5.5 centimeters at the grip. It suits small to even medium hands because the grip width is actually quite wide for being so short lengthwise. Similar to how the Cooler Master MM710 is small, but you can still suit bigger hands because of its wider grip width. A hump is present near the middle of the mouse, but it's not nearly as pronounced as something as like the Razer Death Adder. Here's a size comparison to other similarly sized mice, and here's a size comparison to other popular mice. Mouse 1 and 2 are raised 2 centimeters and 1.5 centimeters from the surface respectively. The thumb groove on the left side is what gives it its unique shape. Plus, it curves quite a bit inward on the right side so that you can grip it easier. The only thing I don't like about the shape is that the side buttons are a little hard to press because of how pronounced the thumb groove is. I'm someone who uses their side button a lot. I have it bound to crouch in FPS games, and for those of you who play Valorant or Counter-Strike, you know how often you have to use that. Unlike other mice, I can't really just slide my thumb button over to press it. I have to lift my thumb to deliberately press the buttons because they're recessed above the thumb groove, if that makes any sense. I place my thumb on different parts of the thumb groove depending on the situation as well. Like sometimes I'll have my whole thumb on the thumb groove, and sometimes I'll position just the tip of my thumb to be on the back of the thumb groove so I can grip it better. Speaking of grip, this thing is really grippy. Out of the 20 plus mice that I own, the Kone Pure Ultra's texture is the best I've ever tried, bar none. I'm someone who hates the slippery mice. I couldn't deal with the slipperiness of the Logitech G Pro Wireless, and I find the texture of the G305 barely passable. I also put friction tape on most mice I use. I'm saying this so you know the context of the type of mice textures I like and don't like, and because texture is obviously very hard to describe without actually having it in your hands. I personally like rubberized sides such as the ones on the Razer Death Adder or the Razer Viper, but I understand that a lot of people have a lot of durability concerns about it because they've been known to peel off. The texture in the Kone Pure Ultra gives the best of both worlds. It has a grippy, rubbery-like texture, but doesn't have an actual rubber on it, so it can't peel off. It's really hard to describe without people feeling it themselves, but just know that it's very, very grippy and suits sweaty hands. One thing though is that it's a little bit of a fingerprint magnet, but that is a small price to pay for the amount of grippiness you can have with this mouse. Another great thing about this mouse is the build. It's built like a tank, while still remaining pretty lightweight. It weighs in at about 68 grams with some of the cable, but you wouldn't know of it from the looks. It has no holes, and I can't get it to creak or squeak at all when I apply a lot of pressure from any direction. Mouse 1 and 2 are 50mm Chinese Omrons, which are the same ones found on the Logitech G Pro Wireless and older Death Adders, and most other mice these days. They're pretty crisp and quieter than most other mice I've tested, and they're slightly thonkier too. Side buttons and the two DPI buttons are also nice and crisp. I love having the two DPI buttons, by the way. For most mice, I usually rebind the DPI button to melee, but having another button is really nice in games like Apex Legends, where I can bind it to something like a shield battery, or in a game like League of Legends, where I can bind it to an item slot or something. They're out of the way too, so you don't have to worry about accidental presses. The scroll wheel is on a whole nother level. Roccat uses their patented Titan wheel, which makes it feel both smooth and super tactile. It's bar none the best scroll wheel I've ever tried. The pre and post travel situation on the mouse buttons follows suit with the rest of the build quality. All buttons, including side and DPI buttons, have very minimal to no pre and post travel, and unlike other mice, if I apply a lot of pressure, they still don't budge. Like for example on the G Pro Wireless or the MM710, I can press really hard on the side buttons to kind of force them to have post travel, but I can't do that with the Kone Pure Ultra. They're rock solid. They feel really good, and they're some of the best I've ever tried. Now I did have double clicking issues with the first copy of my mouse. About 3 months into use, mouse 1 would start to double click, and about 6 months into use, the back left side button would also start to double click. However, Roccat's customer service was very prompt, even during Corona, and they gave me a replacement free of charge, which was awesome. This replacement mouse hasn't had any issues so far. The sensor is also great. Roccat calls it their owl eye sensor, but it's just a slightly modified version of the Pixart 3389 sensor, same one as those found in the Cooler Master MM710, Endgame XM1, and the Razer Death Adder Elite. Up to 16,000 DPI, 50 grams acceleration, and no spinouts in any of my testing. Perfectly suitable. So with all those positives, why is this thing so hard to recommend? Well, let's talk about its features, or more specifically, the lack thereof. The mouse feet. Regular black Teflon. They're thick and wide, but they're not silky smooth PTFE. They remind me a lot of Zowie mouse feet, which is not particularly a bad thing, but they do have a higher static friction than other mice that have PTFE mouse feet, meaning they'll feel stickier overall. Going back to my mice with pure PTFE mouse feet, like my MM710 or Razer Viper, I could immediately feel the difference of how much smoother they were. It's really unfortunate that Roccat didn't follow the PTFE mouse feet trend. Next, the cable. It's thin and rubber, also reminiscent of Zowie. They're about as flexible, or inflexible, as any other rubber cables out there, like the ones found in the Zowie mice or the original Endgame XM1. But it doesn't stand a chance against competitors who have flexible paracord style cables. Rubber cables just physically can't beat paracord style cables in terms of flexibility. The only thing this cable is more flexible than are the braided cables that come with mice like the Logitech G403. Roccat's Swarm software is very powerful, but bloated. They get a really bad rap for their software, but it's honestly not too bad. You can do all the usual things like adjust DPI, adjust RGB, and adjust the polling rate. But you can also adjust the LOD height, something that unfortunately isn't available on all mice software, set macros, and sync your RGB with other Roccat hardware, like for example their keyboards. However, it by default starts on Windows Startup, which makes boot time slower, and is generally very clunky and bloated. If you really hate it that much, you can always uninstall it, and all the settings will still be kept on the mouse. I would love to see in the future that the software be cleaned up a bit while still keeping the same powerful functionality. So where does that leave us? You can see that Roccat takes a lot of tenets from Zowie, with their amazing build quality, amazing shape, but also their lackluster features, like their cable and mouse feet. And as a final nail in the coffin, their relatively high price point. The KPU retails at around $65. I would have personally been okay recommending this a few months ago, but it's no longer the only small ergo mouse on the block. Now that the Razer Death Adder Mini and G-Wolf Skull Mini have come out, and the glorious model D- is on the way, all of which have paracord style cables and have pure PTFE mouse feet, it's much harder to recommend nowadays, especially with the Death Adder Mini retailing at around $50. So I think that in the end, this mouse is for people who really want to try out this shape. I wish they would sell these at like Walmart or Best Buy, because I think a lot of people would gravitate towards them. But for $65, it's hard to recommend this mouse to anyone who isn't dead set on trying out this mouse's shape. If you personally want to try out the shape, give it new mouse feet, give it a paracord, and treat yourself, by all means, that's awesome. But if you're someone who just wants to look for a small ergo mouse, I would have to point you towards the Razer Death Adder Mini or the G-Wolf Skull Mini. Alright guys, I hope you liked it. I hope you found it useful, and I'll leave links for everything down in the description. But until next time, I'll see you in the next video. See ya!